All right, let's go over your Unit 10 Quiz 1 study guide. I'll do the even ones. Here we go. All right, so the first thing we want to do is find an inverse. You can find this in lesson 10.1. First thing you do is replace the g of x there with a y. The next thing you do is you switch the x and the y around. And that's what makes it an inverse. But now we're going to get the y by itself. So the first thing I might do here to get rid of the denominators is I would multiply everything times 8. So I'll multiply by 8 here, I'll multiply by 8 here, and I'll multiply by 8 here. And that's going to cancel these 8's out on this side. So we're left with 8x on the left, negative 5y, and then minus 15. The next thing we want to do to get the y by itself is we want to add 15 on both sides, which will give me the following: 8x plus 15, and then equals negative 5y, because these 15's cancel out. Last thing we'll do is we'll divide by negative 5 on both sides. And I have this as an answer now. Now, they're also going to probably replace the y here with a g of x again, but when they do this time, they're going to put a little negative 1 here to indicate that this is the inverse function. Okay. Now, this is not the only way the answer can be written. Another way that the answer can be written is by splitting these two up and putting each one of them over 5. So this is a possible way the answer can be written, but another way it can be written is like this. And if you're going to split them up, try to reduce if possible. So the first fraction here does not reduce, but this one does. And so here's what it would look like in its final form. If you reduced and simplified, you'd have negative 8/5 x minus 3 . There you go. That's the inverse. So either one of these are acceptable answers, but these are the inverse of this function. And an inverse is a function whereby if you were to plug a number in for g, like let's say I plugged in, we'll say I plugged in 1, that's going to give me an answer of negative, trying to do this in my head, negative 20 over 4 would be 5 over 2. I think it'd be negative 5/2. But this function over here, if I were the inverse function, if I were to plug in negative 5/2, I would get 1. So that's what inverses are. It's the opposite function. So we just found the opposite function. The reason we're talking about this in this chapter is because logarithms are the opposite function of an exponential function. Let's take a look at another one. Here's another way the problem can be written or given to you. So with these ones, once again, first step is to replace the g or f or whatever it is with a y. We still want to flip the x and the y around. Nothing different there. The difference comes here. When you have one big fraction like that, the first thing you want to do is multiply both sides by the denominator, cancel that out. Okay, so I have 5x equals negative 20 minus 8x. Oh, that's not supposed to be an x though, is it? That's supposed to be a y, because I switched the x and the y around. All right, now we're going to go ahead and add 20 on both sides. Then we're going to divide both sides by a negative 8. So this is an acceptable answer. But we can also split it up once again. We could put negative 5/8x plus 20 over negative 8. And then if possible, reduce. Once again, this first one doesn't reduce, but the second one does. So if I reduce that, I would end up with my alternative answer of negative 5/8x minus 5/2. There you go. So that's how you find the inverse of a function. Now, I had some other inverse questions here. They're in your notes. They were extra credit. These will be on your test as an option. So if you want to earn some extra points, you can do the ones that have the radicals like this. And you could also do the ones that have powers like that. You can look at the answer key if you want to get a little hint, and also at your notes. But I won't go over it here in this video. I'll let you guys prepare for that. But they are extra credit. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one here. This says, rewrite each equation in exponential form. This number is your base, so you're going to write that first. The number by itself over here on the right, that's going to be your exponent, and it equals the last number, which is 11. So that's how you'll change something into exponential form. I did an odd problem. I meant to do the even, so I guess I'll go ahead and do that real quick. So once again, here's my base, here's my power, and it should equal the other number. Let's go ahead and try another one here. Now this time we have one that is in exponential form. I want to write it as a log. So the first thing we do is we write log. The number here that's being raised to a power, that's going to be your base, so we're going to write that as a little subscript next to the g. The answer is going to go right next to it after that, equals, and then the exponent is what comes last in this case, so negative 1/3. So that's how you'll change it into exponential form. I'm sorry, log form. All right, so now for this next set here, we're going to be using properties 1 through 6, which are in lesson 10.3. To evaluate these. So I would encourage you maybe to have those out as you're completing this exercise, to reference it, to see for yourself. I'm not going to be doing the odd problems for this set. I'm going to do the next 5 problems in a row, and then I'll leave the next 5 problems after that for you to do, and they'll all be kind of similar to these ones. All right, so let's begin. So whenever the base number here matches this number, the answer is 1. And that is property 1. Now you don't have to be able to tell me what properties you use, but I'm just telling you in case you want to look at your notes and see why. Anytime there's a 1 here, the answer is 0. That's property 2. Oops. This is ln of e. Now ln means that you have a log with a base of e, and then we have e to the a. Whenever the base matches this number and you have an exponent, the answer is simply the exponent. So the answer will be a in this case, and that's property 3. All right. Next, logs cannot have a negative number here. By the way, this log has no number next to the g, but that means it has a base of 10. Don't forget that. That's a common log. But that's beside the point. For now, I want to focus on the negative number here. Whenever a negative number, that means no solution. And that would be property, I think it was property 6, if I'm not mistaken. And then finally, we have this last one I'll do before I leave the next 5 for you guys to work on there. Log base 9 of 0, that's also no solution because you can't have a 0 there. The number that comes after the base has to be a positive number. It can't be 0 or negative. For the 0, I called that property 5 on our 10.3 notes. All right, so I'll let you guys work on 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. And now we'll move on to the next. I'll start doing evens again here. All right, so for this next set, we're going to use the properties again, but before we do, we have to mess with it a little bit. One thing that we'll need to fix is that the number here has to match this number here. So that's going to be rewritten as 9 can be rewritten as 3 to the 2nd power. After that, I can use property 3, since these match, to say that the answer is simply the exponent, which is 2. Here's another one. Once again, I need to get the number here to match the base if it doesn't already. So I'm going to start by rewriting this as 1 over 2 to the 2nd power. 4 is equal to 2 to the 2nd power, so I will replace 4 with 2 to the 2nd power. But there's another thing I don't like about this one. I don't like the fact that it's a fraction. We can fix that. I can make it 2 to the negative 2 because a negative power is the same thing as a fraction, so we can just rewrite it with a negative 2 power. Now that I've got it set up the way I like, I can use property 3. These match, so the answer is simply the exponent. That was 25. I'll let you guys do 26. I was supposed to do the even one, but I didn't. I made a mistake. I'll let you guys do that one, though. Let me go ahead and do 28 for you now. All right, another thing we want to do is radicals. So once again, the first step is we want to get the numbers to match. So the 64, I can rewrite that as 4 to the 3rd power. Okay. Next, I'm going to change the radical into a power. The way that you do that is this number is a numerator, this number is the denominator of a fraction power. So it'll be 4 to the 3/5. And then from there, by property 3, the answer will be the exponent, since these bases match. All right, now we're going to be using some log properties to condense. This was our lesson that we had last time. So first of all, we're going to apply from the 10.5 notes. We learned 3 properties, A, B, and C. I'm going to start by applying property C, which tells me I'm allowed to take the number in front of the log and make it a power of the x there. Same thing here. I can make that 6 a power on the y. Next, since I have a subtraction sign in there, we're going to be using property B from our 10.5 notes, which says I can put these 2 logarithms together into one logarithm, provided that I make this the numerator and this the denominator. And there would be my final answer for that one. All right, once again, we're going to start with property C. Property C tells me that I can take this 4 and make it a power on the 5 there. Now this one is a weird version of property C, but it's still a property C, but I gave you guys a long way and a short way in class. I'm only going to use the short way, but if you want to see why it works, look back at your 10.5 notes. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to have log base 6 of 12 again, but this time I'm going to put a radical on the 12. We're going to get rid of that 2 there and just make it the square. Now since that is a square root, you technically don't have to write the 2. Any other number you would, but I'll just leave the 2 off. All right. The next thing that we're going to do, by the way, that's property C once again, right? The next thing we're going to do is property A. And the reason I'm going to be doing property A is because there's a plus here. And according to property A, if I have these two logs being added, I can put them together as one log, provided that I take this term and multiply it by this term. And that's going to be good enough. All right, one more problem. Once again, property C is first. I can't do property C on this one because there's no number in front of the log. But these two are the weird versions of property C, so we can apply that. Both of them are going to become a square root of, so we have square root of 3 and a square root of 8. Now notice all of these are pluses, so all those are going to go in the numerator together. There's no denominator. We won't have any denominators because there's no minus. But now we're going to do property A, which is just basically multiplying them all together. So we have 5 times radical 3 times radical 8. Now we can, another final note that I mentioned in class was that when you have two roots that are being multiplied together, you can go ahead and multiply those together. 3 times 8 is 24. And that's where we'll stop with that one. Okay? And that's that. So hopefully that's helpful, and we'll see you guys in class for your quiz. Have a good one.